I'm Atlanta City Council President Doug Shipman. The COVID-19 pandemic redefined the way we live and work. Adjusting to the new normal meant remote meetings for the council, but now we are moving in a new direction. The council will resume in-person meetings at City Hall beginning March 7th at 1 p.m. That includes in-person public comment, which will be conducted in accordance with the city's charter. We will also return to in-person committee meetings the week of March 14th. All meetings will convene in City Council chamber. Due to the mayor's recent executive order and guidance from medical experts, there are several health protocols in place, including increased cleaning, room capacity limits, and mask wearing, which is mandatory in the chamber. Our desire is to allow for a safe return to these March meetings. For this reason, we will not resume in-person proclamation presentations until the April 18th council meeting. The doors of the Atlanta City Council chamber are open. We look forward to seeing you.
The call now as Mr. Dozier. Can we go ahead and go back to roll call? If you can call their names, just acknowledge their attendance.
Yes, Councilmember Dozier. And Councilmember Jason Winston.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item is item D, adoption of the agenda. Ms. Kempster, are we all back up and running in terms of e-boardroom now? Can we go ahead and return to electronic voting for those that are in the system?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Can I get a second from the committee member, please?
Second. Bakhtiari.
All right, second motion from Juan, second from Bakhtiari. Let's go ahead and open up the electronic vote. Let's do that first, and then Ms. Kempster, if you'll call for the voice votes after you've received those, that'd be great.
The vote is open.
Waits is aye.
Councilmember Dozier.
Aye.
Councilmember Shook.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes. Colleagues, you received that in your packet. I'll put forward a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Shook.
Second by Shook, motion by Juan. Let's open the vote, please, and then call for the voice votes.
The vote is open. Councilmember Waits.
Waits is aye. Give me 5 minutes so I can pay attention to this. Give me 5 minutes. Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
All right, that motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Kempson-Wright, if you will play the recordings of those messages that were left during the prescribed time, please.
1 moment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And colleagues, we have 4 comments with basically 3.5 minutes.
Greetings, committee members and staff. A special greetings to you citizens who have tuned to this Finance Executive Committee meeting. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. Regarding item 33 on the agenda, the mere fact that Resolution 22-R-3199 is even on the agenda is a testament to forward thinking and to thinking outside of the box. Thank you. Citizens of Atlanta, a number of openings are available on City of Atlanta boards and commissions. Many of these boards and commissions entail some aspects of finance. If your career aspirations or your interests point towards the financial arena, consider making yourself available to fill a board vacancy or a commission vacancy. To get involved in any one of these boards, call the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, otherwise known as APAB, at 404-827-8011. Call APAB at 404-827-8011. Let's work together to expand citizen participation in Atlanta.
Giving on to the Spirit of Christ, my name is Unric Jordan, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Romans 1st chapter 25th verse. He delivered them over to the natural result of their unbelief and action. When you serve the creature more than the Creator, you seek to kill. Therefore, James Montgomery, you ask to be killed. Judge me, O God, and plead my cause against an ungodly nation, or deliver me from the deceitful and unjust man. Psalms 43rd chapter 1st verse. The cry of distress is a petition of a man falsely accused. Christ paid over $1 billion through me to help the homeless calling on Jesus. And the government stole their money. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? And when wilt thou arise out of that sleep? Proverbs 6 chapter 9 verse. The sluggard is the habitually lazy person. Jesus helped me to kill the sluggard spirit in me and others, to help the poor as Christ desires. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord. For all shall know me, from the least unto the greatest. Hebrews 8 chapter 11 verse. Christ has opened the inner sanctuary, most holy place of the heavenly tabernacle, quite in contrast to the closed sanctuary of the earthly. Christ has more for us when we seek to do his will and not our will. We want Christ to control us by his word and by his spirit, in the name of Jesus. Thank you for listening and obey Jesus Christ.
That concludes public comment, Mr. Chair. There were only 2 comments for today's meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright. All right. That moves us to item G on the agenda, presentations and status reports and updates. The first one is the Department of Finance FY22 second quarter update. CFO Bala and team will be presenting, so if y'all can unmute them, and let's proceed with that presentation, please.
Good afternoon, council members. This is Mohammed Bala, Chief Financial Officer, City of Atlanta. Today we will be going over the second quarter financial status report, which looks at the city's performance through the end of December of 2021, which represents half of our fiscal year. We will be going over our performance as it relates to the city's revenues as well as expenses, and then give an update on our treasury services as well. Just to kind of put things into context, going into fiscal year 22, the city was in a much more conservative posture with regards to COVID. Halfway through the year, we have started to see things turn around in a much better direction, and our core revenues are performing much better than anticipated. Deputy CFO Tina Wilson will give a summary of key points, followed by Chief Davis, who will touch on our revenue performance, and Chief Bell, who will give an update on expenditures for both general fund and a high level of the enterprise funds, and then followed by Chief Knight, who will give an update on our debt and investment portfolio. Dr. Wilson?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. This is Tina Wilson, Deputy CFO. If we can move on to the next slide, quickly we'll run through the agenda. I'll provide the quarterly report overview. We'll touch on the governmental funds overview, covering revenues and expenses. We'll cover a slide on the enterprise funds and round out the presentation with a couple of slides on the debt and investment portfolios. Moving on to slide 4. We're covering the fiscal year 2022 second quarter financial status. That is as of December 31st, 2021. This will cover our actuals from July through December 2021, provide a summary analysis of the city's budget to actual performance, and also forecasting projected revenue and expenditure activity for the second half of the fiscal year. We'll address and identify any significant issues that will impact year-end performance and account for any legislative items that have been adopted or are in the pipeline during the quarter. Moving on to slide 6 is a summary of key points, and this is related to the general funds year-to-date revenue versus expenses. On the revenue side, we're looking at property taxes and sales tax, which you will see have significantly exceeded the budget. CFO Bala mentioned this earlier. We have seen a significant turnaround from our posture that we were in during budget development a year ago, heading into FY22. So we have seen a significant turnaround since then. Property tax and sales tax over the course of the pandemic have performed better than we expected, have not been severely impacted by COVID, and performed well. There are 2 highly sensitive COVID impacted revenue categories that are expected to return to pre-COVID levels by the end of the fiscal year, and that is alcoholic beverage taxes and fines and penalties. Alcoholic beverage taxes really saw a turnaround once restaurants and businesses started to reopen, and fines and penalties started to turn around as the courts began to reopen as well. Hotel and motel taxes continue to rebound, but are not yet at pre-COVID levels. But we've seen a significant turnaround there as well, but they do continue to lag. Licenses and permits revenue, you will see on the next slide, has exceeded our budget, but this is mainly driven by a timing difference between fiscal year 22 and 21 as we worked our way through last year and some of the the waiver of penalties for license renewals that was extended through the end of the calendar year last year. So there was some overlap between the two fiscal years as to when people were able to renew their business licenses. So as of the second quarter, the year-end projected revenue surplus is $72.6 million, or 11.2% of the operating revenue budget. And again, just to reemphasize that we had a very conservative budget approach to fiscal year 22 on the revenue side, as we were still very much in the pandemic and 1 year ago. So developing that budget, there was still a lot of uncertainty as to how soon vaccines would roll out and what the other side of the coming out of the pandemic would look like from an economic standpoint. On the expense side, there are three main categories that are at risk of ending the year over budget. Those are in personnel and employee benefits, mainly overtime and group health insurance. Purchase contract services are running over as well. It's mainly in telecom and outside counsel. And we're overrunning slightly in supply. As of the second quarter, the year-end projected expense overrun associated with these risks is $18.7 million, or 2.5% of the operating expense budget. When you net those two amounts, you will see that we have a projected year-end surplus of $53.9 million, and that excludes any pending FEMA reimbursements that we know are in the pipeline. We just do not have a firm date on when those reimbursements will come back into the city. At this point, I will turn the presentation over to Chief Davis, who will go through the revenue.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Good afternoon, council members. I would like to draw your attention to the bottom portion of the first and second column on the left of the spreadsheet. These two columns show a total FY22 general fund budget of $751 million, which includes $55 million of federal subsidies from the American Rescue Plan, $33 million from uncommitted fund balance, and $16 million in committed fund balance from the building permit funds. Absent the federal subsidies and the fund balance transfers, the general fund revenue budget from the city's operation is $647 million. The FY22 budget was developed around uncertainties of COVID-19 pandemic, which included a key assumption that the crisis would have peaked and been managed with mass distribution of vaccines leading up to this fiscal year. However, due to the COVID variants, the city continues to experience some financial impacts to certain revenue sources beyond our expectations, but to a lesser degree than what was expected during the peak period of the pandemic. The second quarter actuals, as shown at the bottom of the third column, is $458 million, which represents 61% of the total budget and 70.9% of the operating budget. Our projections for the remaining 6 months of the fiscal year total is $261 million and equates to a FY22 year-end operation forecast of $719 million, which is an increase of 11.2% or $72.6 million above the $647 million operational budget. This $72.6 million increase in the FY22 year-end projections above the FY22 operating budget is primarily the results of better than expected collections in several key revenue categories. Leading the way in the revenue categories is licensing permits, which is trending upward due to the timing of revenue received from deferred business license renewals, as stated earlier. The FY21 renewal process was delayed during the pandemic, and we continue to collect these revenues in FY22. As of the second quarter, the city has collected as much as 96% of the revenue from the deferred business license that was expected to be received in the prior fiscal year. The FY22 business license renewal season began January 1st with a filing deadline of February 15th and a payment deadline of April 1st. However, due to unforeseen technology issues that took place on February 15th, we extended the filing deadline to March the 4th, with late fees being waived to customers' accounts until such date. We are also noticing that property tax revenues have been unaffected by the pandemic, and we are projecting to see them above the prior year collections. This upsurge is attributed to rising property values from market demands and new construction. For the current year, the City of Atlanta's property tax bills were due October the 30th in Fulton County and November the 15th in DeKalb County. Sales tax revenue has continued to outperform expectations and are projected to trend upward and remain favorable based on the shift from in-person shopping to online during the pandemic. Category of public utilities, alcohol, beverage, and other taxes are projected to increase due to the recent uptick in the title ad valorem tax from rising automobile sales pricing and alcohol by the drink tax from lessening of COVID restrictions on restaurants. The finance and penalty revenue category are also expected to exceed the budget amounts due to increase in traffic and parking fines revenues from reassumption of parking citation enforcement and the reopening of the city courts. Hotel Motel Tax category revenues continue to show signs of improvement since the peak period of the pandemic, which included significant travel restrictions. And now that those restrictions have been lifted, the hotel motel revenue as of the second quarter have exceeded the prior year's collections as much as 24%. Per the Atlanta Convention Bureau, leisure travel has completely been recovered, and business travel and conference attendance are expected to continue to improve. And while most of these mentioned revenue categories have positive outlook, some revenue categories, such as the indirect costs and other revenues, are projected to fall below the budget amounts. This is primarily due to investment loss as the interest rates have trended towards zero for over a year. This decline in the indirect costs and investment earnings is expected to offset some of the increases projected as of the second quarter. In conclusion, the second quarter, there is evidence that improvement in some categories is expected to continue, which appears to be key to the city's financial recovery from the turndown in revenues experienced during the peak stages of the pandemic. And with the uncertainties regarding the availability of federal subsidies, the clear and present risk to this year's general fund revenue continues to reside in revenues that remain vulnerable to the negative impacts of the pandemic. But as always, the finance team will continue to monitor closely the revenues and trends for potential impacts from the changing pandemic and economic conditions. I will yield now at this time to Budget Chief Charles Bell for his presentation.
Thank you, Chief Davis. Good afternoon, committee, Chairman Juan. Want to talk to you a little bit about expenses. We're going to look at it a couple of different ways, once by account group category and then an overview by department at the roll-up levels. You will see, as the slide turns over there, you will see that we're working against the budget here of $751.4 million funded budget, and that we had expense activity of $381.3 million for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. That trended out to be about 51%, so we're looking at it on a straight line basis, just about right on the mark. We typically have a greater spend rate in the second half of the fiscal year, and our projections for expenditures during the second half of the year are $388.8, basically you can just say $389 million. And when you pit that against the expenses of the first half of the year, we're looking at $770.1 million. And then pitting that against the budget, we're looking at an overrun of about $18.7 million. So as you're looking at the slide, you're over into the year-end variance column, and you go back up to the top to see how this $18.7 million shakes out. The biggest contributor is personnel services, expenses for personnel services. 13.55, call it $13.6 million in terms of the deficit. Overtime, chief contributor of about $7.5 million. Looking at those areas in fire, police, and corrections, and a little bit in Department of Transportation. Extra help, about $8.6 million. We're looking again at police, but we also have executive officers, fire, judicial agencies, parks, law, and corrections. And then group health at $6.7 million, have a citywide issue that we're hoping to be able to address in the upcoming fiscal year. But we have underruns in most of the departments throughout the city. As we continue to look at the deficits, we turn our attention to purchase contract services. This is projected to finish up at about a $5.8 million deficit. The deficit is basically attributed to lease agreements and camera system maintenance, a little bit of telecommunication issues, and litigation expenses. Overall, we're looking really at litigation and the costs involved in a few lease agreements and camera system maintenance. Turning our attention to supplies, the supplies account group, we're looking at a forecasted deficit of $2.2 million. Primary contributing factors are material costs for street repairs and paving, dealing with transportation, uniform costs, and utility costs. Summary detail there, really driving areas include ADOT, police, and fire. Debt service. We'd be remiss if we didn't address what's going on here as we try to take the last two together, meaning debt service and other financing uses. While we have budgeted and see some activity in debt service, what we're having here is an accounting classification situation. Looking down at the other financing uses, you'll see that the deficit of just about $18 million. But what's happening here is we need to be able to properly look at it, pit that against the $16.1 million you see up a couple of rows in the column, and the difference is about $1.8 million. So it's just a matter of the way we recognize the expenditure for principal and interest payments, and then, of course, what our accounting group does is try to get it properly allocated to the various bond issues. And the difference of 1.8 is one of our lease agreements with Motorola, and that is the outstanding issue between that 17.9 and 16.1. As we turn our attention to the next slide, we are looking at the expenditures at an overview department-wise. Again, we want to reiterate the fact that our expenses through mid-year are $381.2 million. And then coming all the way through, as we noted before, at about a 51% clip, 389 for the projections for the remainder of the year gets us to that 770.1. And there again, you see pitting it against the budget, come up with an $18.7 million deficit. We do have several departments that we think will finish the year in a deficit position. But in terms of narrating the story, you'll see the five listed there in the right margin. Police services, we kind of talked about this a little bit on the previous slide. Group health tends to plague many, if not all, of our departments. Overtime issues, $2.2 million over budget, and extra help at $3.4 million. So to offset that, we have some underruns for salaries, regular and sworn, as well as workers' comp. The two of those combined for 2.2. And when you add it all together, that's the $7.6 million deficit that we figure police will finish at the end of the year. Our law department continues to deal with the utilization of outside counsel, and that's the driving factor in where we feel that law will finish up at year end. Information management, Atlanta Information Management, we're at $3 million deficit forecast. those issues will come in with telephone and wireless use issues. And then the Department of Transportation, whom we've also already talked about a little bit in terms of the work they're doing in the city this year, about a $900,000 clip for building materials. And then they too have some salary and overtime issues, as you see they're listed in the margin. And then city planning is looking to fill positions for the remainder of the year. Year-end estimates are such that the deficit is projected to be about $2.1 million, with just a hair under $2 million for the salaries regular hirings. These departments pretty much make up our general fund. As we go to the next slide, past the flag page and then to the next slide, we'll be taking a look at our enterprise funds, which would include aviation, watershed, and solid waste. Actual revenue collected, as we look at aviation, whose budget is at about $453.1 million, revenue collected $202 million, and that represents about 44.5% of the budget. The department's year-end performance still anticipates making its way revenue-wise to about $453.1 million. Expenses at mid-year are at $146.7, and that's about a 32.4% clip. Aviation anticipates a year-end expense of $434.9, equating to its anticipated net income finish of about $18.2 million. Turning our attention to Watershed Management, revenues are projected to exceed budget due to higher than anticipated municipal option sale tax revenue, while the budget is $577.2 million, expected to best that, looking at about $317.8 million in the first half of the year versus a clip of $284.9 million in expenses. When you look at the differential for the projections for the remainder of the year, 297 versus 215, it's about an $81.6 million positive clip, and it puts them in position to finish the year at what we believe will be $114.5 million. A little bit of a different story as we look at solid waste. The budget is $66.9 million. Enjoyed a very nice first half of the year and a $5 million clip where revenues exceeded expenses. But things will change a little bit as we predict going down the second half of the year. Expenses will grow at a much faster clip than revenues, and we're looking at about an $11.8 million differential. And pulling it all together, we think that there'll be just under about a $7 million deficit. As you look at the boxes below the chart there, as we look at solid waste, expenses are projected to be over, like I said, $7 to $8 million. And contractual services is the driving factor, coming in at a look at it three different ways. And speaking with solid waste, we've got some emergency contract situations, activity that needed to be addressed. Solid waste collection, meaning bulk illegal dumping, it'd be about $3 million there. And then we have yard trimmings, collection services, a little bit over $1.3 million there, and then a $2.5 million clip for emergency right-of-way maintenance. Those get you to just at about $7 million when you look at the three different categories, and that's the driving factor, almost right on the head as we look at the difference in terms of the forecasted deficit. Assuming we'll have questions at the end, I will now turn it over to our Debt Treasury Chief, Mr. Courtney Knight.
Thank you, Charles. Good afternoon, Chairman Wan, members of the committee. This is Courtney Knight. I'm the City Treasurer, Chief of Treasury, Debt, and Investments. Next slide, please. As the steward of the city's dollars, we have an investment portfolio, a set of objectives in our investment portfolio, which are designed to maximize safety and liquidity over the search for yield. Our investment selections are driven by state statute as well as the city's own investment portfolio. Based upon those objectives and the controlling policies, what we currently have in our debt portfolio is about 30% of our debt in U.S. agency securities, just shy of 30% in other municipal securities, about 25% in Georgia Fund 1, and just over 15% in U.S. Treasury securities. The resulting yield over the past couple of years has been below 2% as record low interest rates have been experienced across the fixed income investment markets. However, we're in a period today where we're looking for rising interest rates beginning this month with the pronouncements from Chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank as to increases in the Federal Reserve rate and other geopolitical factors such as the invasion of Ukraine driving interest rates higher, expected to be higher over the next 12 months and perhaps into the next calendar year 2023. Next page, please. Given that we expect to see rising interest rates on our debt portfolio, on our investment portfolio, we will, on the other hand, experience higher costs on our debt portfolio. Next page, please. The city has approximately $6.2 billion of debt. Most of it is carried in our water and wastewater utility, about 46%. About 40% of the city's debt is for aviation, and smaller amounts for general obligation bonds, tax allocation districts, and other general fund obligations such as leases and lease purchase agreements. On the debt side, we continuously monitor fixed income markets and our debt portfolio to seek opportunities to refund and refinance our outstanding debt in order to generate net present value savings. For example, on the middle of this slide, you will see that we generated over $136 million of total net present value savings on two transactions that were executed in calendar year 2021, one for general obligation bonds and the other at the airport. So we continue to monitor our portfolio for opportunities to save on interest rates. Last page, please. The city of Atlanta continues to enjoy very high credit ratings from all three of the major rating agencies. We have a AA1 and AA+ ratings from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch on our general obligation bonds. That is one notch below the gilt-edged AAA rating, which very few, if any, municipalities in our peer group have achieved a AAA. So we're holding our heads high here in Atlanta in comparison to other municipalities across the country. We also have strong ratings in our water and wastewater debt portfolio, AA2, AA-, AA, and in our airport revenue bonds, which are basically allocated between two security types. GARBs here are described as general airport revenue bonds, secured by all of the revenues at the airport. And here, PFC subordinate lien GARBs are bonds that are secured by specific charges on each plane ticket for passengers enplaned at Hartsfield-Jackson. That concludes my presentation of the Treasury Division's investment portfolio overview, our debt portfolio, and the city's credit ratings. Happy to turn it over to Deputy CFO or CFO Bala to close.
Thank you, Chief Knight. that concludes the prepared remarks today for the second quarter report. Council members, if you have any questions, we'll take them now.
All right. Thank you, CFO Bala and Deputy CFO Wilson. I'll make a couple remarks, and then if folks have any questions, either click your speak button in eBoardroom, or you can just let me know that you want to raise a question. I do just want to commend and applaud the team. I think it probably comes as a surprise to many out in the public to see such strong financial position given the turbulence that we've seen over the last couple of years, and especially, obviously within the second quarter. And I do appreciate the conservative approach to the budgeting process. It's always better to over-deliver than the opposite, and scramble to make up for deficits. The one thing I will say is what's also encouraging is the fact that the strong financial performance, at least that we're projecting through the end of the year, will allow us to basically not need to dip into the fund balance that was originally anticipated to balance the budget for FY22, if we can hold steady the course here. But a lot of that also is due to a significant amount of the federal subsidies that are shown on page 7. But that's okay. I mean, that's a good problem to have, and it's just something we will need to be mindful of as we go into our next budget season. And I just also want to say, let's be mindful that a projected surplus at this point, given all that, is also not a reason to look for additional ways to spend that money. So anyhow, with that, I will open the floor up to any of my colleagues that may have questions or additional comments. I do not see anyone in the queue, but didn't know if anybody wanted to jump in at this point. All right.
Chair?
Yes. Is that Mr. Bond? Yes, please, Mr. Bond. You have the floor.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to add some more complimentary comments to our CFO and our financial team. I think that they have been good stewards of our budgeting process and continue to impress with their ability to manage the city's finances. So I just want to say kudos to them. As you've noted, with the budget situation that we find ourselves in, despite events around the world that are having negative effects on other jurisdictions and other levels of government. So I think that this is a very exceptional report, and very pleased to have them at the helm. And so I just wanted to compliment them. When I was first elected, all of the older heads told me, the bond rating and the financial situation of the city is all. And they are helping us to maintain that and to keep, Atlanta secure for the, foreseeable future. So I really do appreciate their efforts.
Here, Mr. Bond. Colleagues, any more comments or questions for CFO Ball and his team? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, and appreciate the good work, and I do appreciate your making the rounds to meet with council members in advance as well to answer individual questions. That's probably why we don't have that in our session today. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to item 2, COVID-19 funds report. I believe Mr. Deloach will be providing this information for our committee today. So Mr. Deloach, are you on the line? Ms. Kempson-Wright, do we see him on the phone list?
One moment.
Thank you.
Hey,
Mr. Deloach. Hey, how are you? Thank you for. We can hear you. So thank you. If you want to go ahead and proceed with your presentation, please.
Thank you so much. This afternoon, we're going to present the February 2022 CFO COVID-19 funds report. Slide number 2 sets out the reporting requirements as authorized by legislation passed by the City Council. Next slide, please. Slide 3 is a summary of all federal funds that have been approved and received by the City of Atlanta on the left side. On the right side, we're showing one grant still pending. That is the Georgia Law Enforcement and First Responders Supplemental Grant. It's pending for the amount of $2.7 million, and it represents requests for employees in the Department of Atlanta Fire Department, Atlanta Police Department, and the Department of Corrections to meet the requirements as set out by the state of Georgia. The most recent update on that one is that it's currently a decision is in progress, and hopefully we'll check again on Friday, and we'll have additional information. But as far as all information is concerned, we have submitted that, and we're just waiting for the state to make a decision at this point. Next slide, please. This provides a breakdown of the CRF obligations, which is the CARES Act. We received $88.4 million. We have obligated costs of $87.3 million. Thus far, we have actual costs of $86.1, and we have an available balance of $1.048 million, which we have not received expenses against those, but those funds have actually been obligated to spend. One of the things that the committee asked the last time was that we provide the performance period, and we've indicated that information in the top right-hand corner. Next slide, please. The next slide is the breakdown of the emergency rental obligation and spend breakdown. For emergency rental assistance, the city has received $27.3 million. We have obligated costs of $27.2 million, and we're showing actual costs against that now as $19.5 million and an available balance of $40,000. The performance period is noted on the left-hand side as well, and United Way is our partner in this particular program. Next slide, which is the American Rescue Plan Act obligation and spend breakdown. Those funds were provided to the City of Atlanta in 2 tranches. We received the first tranche in May of 2021, and we will expect to receive the second tranche in May of 2022. For the first one, we received $85.4 million. Obligated costs are showing at $76.5 million. Our actual costs are showing at $75.3 million, and with an available balance of $8.8 million. That available balance of $8.8 million, it is obligated. The programs just have not just been rolled out in terms of the sponsor and the particular specifics of the particular program, but we do have plans to spend that money. As previously noted, the performance period is noted on the page as well. The next slide is the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration breakdown of the funds received at the Department of Aviation. The funded amount was $338.5 million. Thus far, we have obligated costs of $231.3 million. We have actual costs of $231.3 million, and it has an available balance of $107.1 million for the Department of Aviation. Next slide, please. The next slide is the breakdown for the Emergency Solution Grant, which has been managed by the Department of Grants. The funded amount was $12.7 million. The obligated costs thus far are $5.4 million. Actual costs, $5.4 million, and it's showing an available balance of $7.3 million, and the performance period is noted as July of 2026. Next slide, please. The next slide is the breakdown for the Community Development Block Grant. We received $4.2 million to respond to COVID-19. Our obligated costs are $2.9 million. Our actual costs are $2.9 million. And we have an available balance of $1.26 million, but the performance period for July of 2022, July 28, 2022. Next slide, please. It's the HOPWA grant for COVID-related activities. The funded amount is $3.3 million. The obligated costs are $88.2. Actual costs are $88.2. and the available balance is $3.2 million. The performance period for this grant is March 31st of 2023. The next grant is the Atlanta Police Department. We received $1.38 million. We have obligated costs of $814,000, actual costs of $814,000, with an available balance of $565,000. We're also required to report, which is the next slide, slide 12. We're also required to report on nonprofit and philanthropic organizations. We've had 3 instances of that. We had a program with Georgia's Own Credit Union for $1.5 million that provided benefits to 750 recipients. Invest Atlanta, the Small Business Continuity Loan Fund, was for $1.5 million, $1.550,000 that provided benefits to 59 recipients. And we had the Invest Atlanta United Way collaboration that provided financial support to the homeless population for $1 million, and that benefited 500 people. We're also required to report on donations. Our donations have, for the most part, decreased substantially as we've gotten into the COVID pandemic response. For the third quarter, which is the quarter that we're in now, for FY22, we're showing $28,000. And that's actually a reflection of the value of the warehouse space that was being donated to the city. This is the last time that we will report on that particular donation as the city has moved out of that location effective with this report. Our donations total thus far have amounted to $1,112,096.54. And if you will take note at the second bracket below is an indication of how that breakdown is based on departments and the dollar amount each department has received. We're also required to provide detailed information regarding, for ethics purposes, regarding the donation in terms of donor contact information, and we have complied with that with slides 14, 15, 16, and 17. On slide 18, it is a breakdown of expenditures and the funding for those particular expenditures. I will not go through, as I did the last time, as an introduction to the program. What I will tell you is that on the left-hand side for budgeted expenditures, that's $225,213,786 that we have expended. And on the right-hand side, it shows a breakdown of $213,786, the 73 cents in terms of the funding to take care of those expenditures. The funding comes from the sources that I mentioned to you earlier, which includes the CARES Act. And if you will follow at the bottom, go down to the bottom, it will show you how much expenditure are charged against each particular fund that we have received. For CARES Act, Emergency Rental Assistance, as you go across, the American Rescue Plan Act, the state, for FEMA, and for city funds. And that means that in the city funds column, those funds right now are being charged to the city, and that's what we believe the city's exposure is from its own funds for responding to COVID-19. Since our last report, the primary expenditures that we have accounted for on this sheet, slide number 18, is a payment to United Way of Greater Atlanta for $6.9 million, which was for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And we are allowed from ARPA, we've charged $64 million for the loss of revenue that took place in FY21. That concludes our report, and if there are any questions, we will entertain those.
Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Deloach and his detailed presentation? I don't see anybody in the speakers queue. Is there anyone who is not in e-order that wanted to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, this is Waits. Is this a good time?
Yes, please. Ms. Waits, you have the floor.
Hey, sir. Okay, I had significant questions surrounding Hopway. It was my understanding that you were going to schedule something separate from this entity, or I don't know if this is the right forum to have that conversation surrounding audit questions and funding for Hopwood. So would you be doing that going forward, or is that an individual request that I should make?
No, so I've been in conversations with Ms. Kempson Wright as well as Chairman Dozier. in terms of trying to get a work session scheduled, a joint work session between Community Development, Human Services, as well as Finance Committee to discuss HOPWA. I mean, there are many layers of that that I think we have to take in combination. Ms. Kempson-Wright, is there an update with that process? I know that you and I spoke about it last week, but didn't know if we made any movement on that yet.
Yes, Mr. Chair. There have been conversations with the Community Development Human Services Analyst and the chair of the committee, and the joint work session, we're working on planning something after the spring recess.
Well, after the spring recess, wow, okay. Which isn't until April, when is it? April 15th. Huh, okay. I was anticipating or hoping that we would get something sooner than that because, I mean, the issues are pressing and the funding challenges are impacting programs as well as, individuals. Chairman Dozier, I think maybe you and I need to have a sidebar on this and maybe figure out a way to accelerate this between your and my calendars.
That works, and sorry, I'm trying to do two things at the same time. Yeah, no, that works, and I have to get with you offline on when the timing of that makes the most sense. I know between our committee's work, between our, like, for instance, for CDHS, we have our CDP public hearings coming up, and then, we have a number of presentations that are kind of concurrent with it, so that's made the timing piece a little bit more difficult than previously anticipated. I also recognize that recess is in less than a month, starts in less than a month, so yeah, I have to get with y'all fine. We can maybe get some things on at least a few dates worked out, and then see if we can work that back with grants and get something scheduled.
Okay. All right. Ms. Waite, I mean, I share your sense of urgency on this. I apologize that this is taking a little longer than I think I had originally anticipated, but hopefully you heard that between the two committees, we are going to try and jumpstart this a little bit once we get off of this meeting.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, is it possible then that we could get the audit information? Because I think trying to coordinate something between that many people is probably going to be time consuming. So what is it that we can get now in terms of data or questions regarding why there are individuals who are unhoused or their rents or so forth are not being paid at this time? And we can chat offline after the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would say, Chairman Dozier, you did have a presentation from HOPWA at a CDHS meeting a couple cycles ago. Is that correct?
It was more broad to all of the grants and all of their disbursements. So it wasn't specific to HOPWA.
Okay.
And that was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think that was when we were initially discussing the need to have a separate work session.
Okay. But why don't we do this? Maybe me, you, and Councilmember Waits can connect after this and then figure out a game plan, short-term, kind of immediate game plan, as well as a more medium-term with the work session.
That works for me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your consideration.
Absolutely. I appreciate your staying on this. Other questions or comments from my colleagues on the COVID-19 funders report? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Deloach. Appreciate the level of detail, and we'll see you next time. All right, colleagues, before we move on to the consent agenda, I did want to point out that in your packet today, there is a written report from Ms. Kenyatta Mitchell regarding a legislative update across the street under the Gold Dome. So I invite you to take a look at that. She will be joining us at some point. She just had a conflict during our meeting time today. Again, obviously, things are pretty busy over there, but we will make sure we get her at a subsequent meeting. But take a look at that, and if you have any specific questions, I'm sure she would welcome your reaching out directly to her. All right, that now takes us to the consent agenda, item H, ordinances for first reading. Ms. Kempson-Wright, if you will sound those, please.
Yes, item number 1 is 22-0-1191, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay the outstanding invoice for special procurement SP6647PL with Asset Works LLC on behalf of the Department of Public Works for services rendered during the term of the agreement in an amount not to exceed
$69,561.51, with all contract work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed. Item number 2 is 22-01192. It's an ordinance authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2022 water and wastewater renewal and extension fund budget in the amount of $1,036,889.00 and the fiscal year 2022 DPR ground and site trust fund budget in the amount of $163,111.00 to anticipate and appropriate funds from a West Side Tax Allocation District grant approved by the Atlanta Development Authority to reimburse costs expended by the Department of Watershed Management and the Department of Parks and Recreation for environmental remediation work conducted at Rodney Cook Park Senior in historic Bond City. And item number 3 is 22-01193, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor and his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to amend the Second Amendment to lease agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management with the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, for the purposes of extending the term of the lease to June 5th, 2023, at an annual rent of $10.00, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city to execute all agreements and instruments that the city attorney deems necessary to effectuate the intent of this ordinance, waiving the requirements of Section 2-1546 of Article 10, the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City Code of Ordinances, and for the purposes.
All right, thank you for reading those in. We will take no action on those and will be before us at our next cycle. Okay, it takes us to our regular agenda, ordinances for second reading. The first item is 22-01107, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the City of Atlanta to waive the competitive procurement sole source selection provisions contained in Section 2-1187 of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, and any conflicting code provisions, and to authorize and ratify the City of Atlanta's agreement with Emory University to provide Michael Clary, MD, as a service provider and to serve as the Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction, Deputy Director of Violence Reduction, and to perform certain services in the amount of $9,197.50 per month for an initial term of 1 year from January 10th, 2022 and ending on August 31, 2022, and automatically renewing for 1 additional year terms and for other purposes. Colleagues, you will recall that this was referred back to us from full council. There is a substitute in your packet that I will make a motion to bring forward. And colleagues, what this does is it, the caption is the same for the most part, except it says, and to perform services pertinent to such office in the amount of $9,197.50 per month for an initial term retroactively effective from March 14, 2022 and ending on August 31, 2023, with 3 successive 1-year optional renewal terms commencing September 1 to August 31 each subsequent year and for other purposes. All right, so there was a motion from Juan. Was that Waits that seconded or Bakhtiari?
Bakhtiari.
Okay, Bakhtiari second to bring the substitute forward. Any questions on that motion to bring the substitute forward? If not, let's open the vote, please.
One moment. The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye. Did you get me?
Yes, thank you. Waits is aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Okay, the motion carries. Ms. Clemens or Ms. Burks, are you on the line here to walk us through the substitute and how it addresses the concerns that had this referred back to us?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. LaShondra Burks, Deputy Chief Operating Officer. Just to address the changes that were made based on feedback from committee members, other council members, and after having extensive conversations with Emory University, with our law department and their law department. What you have before you now takes out a couple of things. One, it takes out the automatic renewal that was in the previous one, but it still does align the years of service with Emory's calendar school year. So the first initial term would be for 18 months from March 14th through August 30th. And then starting September 1st, we're asking for 3 one-year options to renew. And of course, those will have to come before council, unlike before when it was automatic renewal. And I'm happy to
thank you. I appreciate Ms. Burks, I appreciate you and your team taking this back and kind of maneuvering it through both us and Emory to address the concerns. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues on this paper, the substitute that is before us, and the solution that they've crafted?
Approval on substitute.
All right, it's not all. Okay, there's a motion from Mr. Shook to approve on substitute. I will second that. If there's no more discussion, we'll take the vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Councilmember Bonds?
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Burks. All right, the next item is 22-0. You got 22-01136, an ordinance by finance executive. Actually, there is a substitute for this, and I'm going to read in the caption of the substitute and make a motion to bring that forward. It's an ordinance by finance executive committee authorizing the mayor or his designee in accord section 2-1163C, article 10, procurement and real estate code of the city of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to ratify FC 1190580 with the Sequel Company on behalf of the Departments of Finance and Human Resources to exercise renewal term option number 2 for a term of 1 year effective retroactively from October 22, 2021 through October 21, 2022 in an amount not to exceed $39,000.00. All contracts work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Do I have a second? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just getting a signal here that it's actually an amendment. Hang on a second. Ms. Kempson-Wright, is that correct? We should be treating this as an amendment, not a substitute?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you're correct. There's just an amendment.
Okay. Great. So I'll withdraw my motion to bring that substitute forward, and we'll, this is now before us. Ms. Carr, I believe you're going to speak to this, and then if you'll describe the amendment, I'll make the motion to amend after you explain that to us, please. And actually, as you are getting Ms. Carr unmuted, the amendment is to replace the words in accordance with waiving in reference to the procurement code throughout the legislation. All right, Ms. Carr, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, this legislation is for Fiscal. Fiscal is a company that we use as far as our actuaries. So this is really a paper from an accounting standpoint. It's a paper in connection with the Department of Human Resources. So right now, the services go from October through October. So when we look at this is our last renewal from October 21 through October 22. Just so you're aware, no services have been provided. So really, this is ratifying the contract so that we can continue the services. Just so that everyone is aware, the services typically happen around May or June when we end our fiscal year. So when we go back out for bid, we're going to make sure that we have the contract in line with our fiscal year. So really, again, this is a contract that we inherited. And again, no services have been performed on this contract. So we wanted to be responsible and get before you just to go ahead and amend the contract to move forward with the service.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Carr. I had raised the question during briefing regarding the retroactive status, but I think, as you said, no services have been delivered since then, so it's really just in date only, and that you've got things in place to make sure that we stay current with the renewals or the new contract going forward. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to amend based on the language I read earlier, and the form is in your packet. Is there a second on the motion to amend? Was that Shook? Okay. All right, second by motion by Juan, second by Shook to amend. Let's open up that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
Councilmember Waite?
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment is before you.
Okay, we have amended paper before us. Is there anyone who has any other additional questions on this paper or comments? All right, if not, I'll make. All right, there's a motion from Shook to approve as amended. I will second that with the motion and proper second. Let's go ahead and open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
Councilmember Waite?
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Carr. All right, the next item is 22-0-1137, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all documents necessary for the acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the new sidewalk installation for pedestrian accessibility and safety improvements for Barge Road, Lucille Avenue, Mount Gilead Road, and Hightower Road, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisal surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney, in the event negotiations are unsuccessful, to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to code section listed, waiving certain provisions of Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, all contracted work and payments for property interests to be paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I understand that Ms. Jessica Fulton from the Atlanta Department of Transportation will be speaking to this. Ms. Fulton, if they can unmute you, if you can tell us about this project, please.
Good afternoon, Jessica Fulton, ATL DOT. This project is a pedestrian improvement project at various locations near MARTA bus stops, and this legislation would allow us to begin the right-of-way acquisition process.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues on this paper before us? All right, if not, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bond. So motion from Juan, second by Bond. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Waite says aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, the motion carries. Colleagues, if there's no objections, I'd like to take the next two items together. 22-01138, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to amend Ordinance 17-01732, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on November 20th, 2017, and approved by operation of law on November 29, 2017, by adding an additional funding source, 3502, General Government Capital Fund and for other purposes, and then 22-01139, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to amend Ordinance 21-0-0168, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on April 19, 2021, and approved by operation of law on April 28, 2021, by adding an additional funding source, 3147 2015 Infrastructure Bond Fund, and for other purposes. Commissioner Rowan, I believe you will be online to speak to these two papers, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Josh Rowan, Commissioner of the Atlanta Department of Transportation. We have one item that was a carryover from Public Works and one that was actually fairly recent. Both are just adding funding items that reflect back to our infrastructure fund, just simply administrative changes.
All right.
So we recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments on either of these papers? Seeing none, I'll offer a motion to approve both. Is there a second?
Second, Winston.
Bakhtiari.
Second by Winston. Motion by Juan. Let's go ahead and open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable.
All right, motion carries on both papers. Thank you. Next item is 22-01140. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to correct ordinance 18-01530 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 17, 2018, and approved by operation of law on September 26, 2018. For the purpose of correcting the parcel numbers and adding additional parcels listed in Exhibit B and for other purposes. Commissioner Rowan.
Yes, sir. This was a right-of-way easement acquisition paper that didn't identify all of the parcels that were necessary to address during the process. So it's another cleanup piece of legislation.
All right, colleagues, any questions or comments on this paper? All right, seeing none, I'll put forward a motion to approve. Can I get a second, please?
Bakhtiari, second.
Second by Bakhtiari. See, you got one in there finally.
Finally.
Let's open the vote, please. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Rowan. Next item is 22-0-1141. And colleagues, there is a substitute for this, so I'll read the caption in and then make a motion to bring forward the substitute. It's an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Chapter 114, Personnel, Article 4, Classification Plan of the Code of Ordinances, City of Atlanta, Georgia, so as to provide for certain position abolishments, creations, reclassifications, class creations, above entry authorizations, employee position transfers, position funding allocation changes, and other personnel actions in line with the FY 2022 budget and for other purposes. I'll move to bring the substitute forward. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Second by Bond. All right, motion by Juan, second by Bond. Let's go ahead and open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Commissioner Norman, I believe you're on the line to speak to what this paper does.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Juan. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Good afternoon, members of the Finance Executive Committee. This piece of legislation is primarily an abolishment paper. And so you will see in the substitute that has been provided that there are 89 total actions referenced in this paper. Of those actions, 80 of those are the abolishment of vacant positions. Of those 80 positions, we have determined that those are positions across the respective departments identified that have been vacant for beyond an 18-month period of time. And so this is the first phase of us ensuring that we have alignment within our classification plan as we approach planning for FY23 and the personnel paper that we will be bringing forward. This is a budget neutral paper. You will see that there are an additional 9 actions in addition to those 80 abolishments. Those are primarily to facilitate appropriate funding allocations as we have gone through our monthly process of doing personnel validations with the respective departments. So we do want to ensure that we have once again, identified the appropriate funding streams and the funding allocations, as well as making sure that any reclassifications that have not been instituted at this point are appropriately aligned. But that is the purpose of the legislation currently in front of you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Colleagues, does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion on this paper? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bond, motion by Juan. Let's go ahead and open up the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Waits is aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Norman. Okay, I'm going to, without objection, I'm going to take the next three papers together. 22-01151, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2001 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, 2007 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, and 2013 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the state of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. 22-01154, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2014 Swayze Drive, Decatur, Georgia 30032, into the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the state of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes, and 22-01157, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2071 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2080 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2083 Kavanaugh Avenue, that's hard to say, Southeast, and 2084 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the state of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. Colleagues, we're going to need to hold these as their companion papers that address the land use, make its way through the CDHS and public hearing process. With that, Ms. Bakhtiari, would you like to put forward the motion to hold on your papers?
Yes, I'll put forward the motion.
All right. I will gladly second those. With that motion from Bakhtiari, second from Juan, let's open that vote, please. Motion is to hold.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are held.
All right, motion carries on all three papers. Next item is 22-01162, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend Chapter 114 Personnel, Article 4, Civil Service, Division 1, generally, to create a new section 11490 to be titled I Speak ATL Language Access Training, to require that all elected officials, part-time, full-time, and contract employees of the City of Atlanta shall be required to undergo I Speak ATL language access training on an annual basis, to require that the Department of Human Resources shall be responsible for maintaining and implementing the required annual I Speak ATL language access training and for other purposes. I understand that LaShawn Dudley or Valerie Mills from the Department of Human Resources is on. Ms. Bakhtiari, do you want to make any comments before we hear from them, or after, would you like to wait till after?
I'll wait till after.
Great. All right. Do we have Ms. Dudley or Ms. Mills on the phone to talk to us about this paper, please?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman Juan, Executive Committee members. I'm LaShawn Dudley, Deputy Chief Equity Officer. And so essentially, I Speak ATL is the city's language access plan. And it's to ensure that no one is excluded from accessing the city's programs and services because of their language or country of origin. And this program has been 7 years in the making, really designed to equip all city departments to serve all constituents equally, equitably, and efficiently, and free of charge, irrespective of their language to speak. And so as we continue to enhance and improve these services, we have established this ordinance to mandate a citywide training for all city employees.
All right, Councilmember Bakhtiari, you have the floor now.
I don't think there's anything for me to add. I'm in full support. I hope my colleagues join me.
Just giving you a chance. I do have a question. I mean, in terms of and you may have said this and I missed it, but what are kind of the time obligations on this? Is this kind of like an hour online training module, or are there multiple modules? Just want to make sure we understand what we are obligating our employees to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your... Go ahead, Valerie.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, council members, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Valerie Mills, Senior Program Manager, the Division of Immigrant Affairs, Mayor's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. The training will be self-paced. It will be 30 minutes, and it will be uploaded on ATL Cloud. We're currently at the testing stage, so it's really ready to go. After which we envisage starting the training end of March, beginning of April. And after this year, it will be going on every year.
Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Bakhtiari, do you want to, are there any other questions from my colleagues? If not, Ms. Bakhtiari, would you like to make the motion?
You're so good to me, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to make the motion to approve.
All right. We have a motion. I will second that. Motion by Bakhtiari, second by Juan. If there's no further discussion, let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Bakhtiari, I'm sorry, Councilmember Waite.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you to Ms. Dudley and Ms. Mills for being on here, and thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. All right, next item is 22-01163, an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Juan, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2022 Solid Waste Revenue Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in an amount not to exceed $702,099.09 on behalf of the Department of Public Works for revenue sharing funds from contract number listed with Pratt Recycling, Inc. for revenue sharing performance for processed recyclable materials from June 16, 2021 to January 31, 2022, and for other purposes. I believe Ms. Kanika Greenlee is on the line to speak to us about this paper. Ms. Greenlee.
Good afternoon. This is Kanika Greenlee, Department of Public Works. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Good afternoon. You have the floor.
Yes, this is a revenue share agreement with Pratt Recycling. The contract will pay 50% of the revenue share once we reach a certain market value of $40 per ton for processed recyclable materials. This is from a period from June 16, 2021 through the end of January 2022. A recent Solid Waste Association of North America report states that recycling markets have strongly recovered since the national SWOR started in 2018. So the good news is that prices and demands for recyclable materials from municipal curbside programs have rebounded, hence why we're getting this rebate. And moving forward, we will reconcile this monthly with Pratt Recycling.
Ms. Greenlee, I do have a question on this one. So I'm glad to hear that the commodity prices have rebounded. What percentage of kind of the high water mark in terms of the market would you say that or estimate that we're at this point? And then understand, when would you have said the high water mark would have been? Maybe sometime in like 2017, 18? Is that when everything kind of tanked?
Correct. So the markets crashed late 2017, early 2018.
Okay.
And it's just rebounding late last summer, early fall.
What percentage do you think we're at this point, compared back to 2017? Are we, maybe at 60, 70%, or is it lower than that? I knew we got hit pretty hard.
Well, our current processing rate is currently $75 a ton. Keep in mind that the recyclable market values go up and down like the stock market prices would, so they fluctuate daily and monthly. So, for example, in January of this year, 50% of our revenue share is $51.55 a ton, which would bring our standard rate for the month of January down from $75 a ton to $23.45 a ton.
Yeah, I'm just saying overall, the commodity market, I'm glad to hear we've recovered, but are we still a good 30, 40, 50% below where we were before the crash overall? I mean, not the contract itself, but just in the market in general.
When I've been with the city since 2015, and we were in a rebate posture where we weren't paying for processing fees. I think we're some ways away from that. It's hard to predict it will ever get to that point again. But this is a substantial improvement. I would say somewhere between 60 and 70%.
Okay, yeah, that's good news. I'm excited anyway, well, I just hope our citizens keep recycling. With that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve. Is there a second on this one?
Second.
Oh, gosh, I have no idea which. Who would like to?
Okay, it was Bakhtiari. I second this.
Okay. All right, second by Bakhtiari. Sorry, gentlemen. Let's go ahead and open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Ms. Greenlee. All right. The next item is item 20-01164. We do have a substitute for this, and I will read the caption in and then make a motion to bring it forward. An ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2022 Capital Asset Finance Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations the amount of $8,838,000.00 to be used for the acquisition of equipment for the Atlanta Department of Transportation, Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, Atlanta Police Department, Department of City Planning, Department of Enterprise Assets Management, and the Department of Parks and Recreation, pursuant to the 2008 Master Lease and Option Agreement between the City of Atlanta and the Georgia Municipal Association, Inc., and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to bring the substitute forward so we can open up conversation on it. Can I get a second on that, please?
Second.
Second by Bond, motion by Juan. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Waite?
Aye.
Thank you. One moment. The vote is closed. The substitute is before you.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. I believe Commissioner Wiggins is going to speak to this. Commissioner Wiggins, are you on the line with us?
Thank you, Chair Juan and committee members. Can you hear me well enough?
Yes, we can hear you. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Wiggins, Commissioner of Public Works here. This ordinance authorizes the CFO to amend the FY 2022 Capital Asset Fund by adding a little bit over $8,800,000 that will be used for the purchase of approximately 145 vehicles for ATL DOT, Atlanta Fire Rescue, APD, City Planning, Department of Enterprise and Asset Management, and the Department of Parks and Rec. I think it is important to note that approximately 45% of these vehicles will be purchased for APD and Atlanta Fire and Rescue that are currently or will soon be in limited supply. So we're asking for your support with approving the proposed legislation so that we can procure the mission critical equipment as quickly as possible. Thank you, and I'm happy to address any questions should you have any.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. During the briefing, I had asked someone potentially from finance to just do a quick, maybe 2-minute explanation for just a refresher for me and the other new council members as to how the GMA financing vehicle works. Is there someone from finance that can speak to that?
Councilmember, how are you doing? This is Mohammed Bala, Chief Financial Officer. So just to orient everybody, the GMA is a lease pool, and the City of Atlanta is one of the participants in that lease pool and has a agreed upon allocation. We are already have those commitments in place of roughly $43 million. So these funds are already part of that commitment for the City of Atlanta's allocation. And then what happens on an annual basis, depending on the vehicle type, the user agency will allocate a portion of its annual budget appropriations to repay back the lease obligation. After that period of time, which is 5 to 6 years, the city gets a free and clear title and owns the vehicle for the remaining life cycle of the vehicle. So there's not any additional allocation that the city isn't already have access to.
Okay, thank you, CFO Bala. All right, with that, are there any questions or comments from my colleagues on this paper? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve on substitute. Is there a second?
Second, Bakhtiari.
Oh, I was hoping Dozier would sneak in there. All right, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Councilmember Dozier, it's just a little mic button. You just hit it, and then you can speak.
Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite. Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. All right, the next item is item 22-01167. There is also a substitute for this in your packet. I'll read that in and make the motion to bring that forward. It's an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Lewis as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, waiving Chapter 2, Article 10, Section 2-1332A of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to authorize the donation of previously used computers to various organizations in Council District 12 and for other purposes. I'll move to bring the substitute forward. Is there a second?
Second, Dozier.
Second by Dozier. All right. All right. Motion by Warren, second by Dozier. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye. No, sir.
Councilmember Waite.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you at this time.
All right, we have the substitute before us. Is Councilmember Lewis on the call with us to speak to this paper? Or is there anyone from his staff on here? And this.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Bond, can. All right. Anyone from Mr. Lewis's office? All right. Any questions or comments on this paper from my colleagues? The paper enumerates the 24 computers as well as the, looks like about 15 locations, organizations that it will be donated to. All right. If there are no questions, is there a motion from the committee?
Motion by Winston.
All right, there's a motion by Winston to approve on substitute. I will second that. If you can open the vote, please, Ms. Kenson-Wright.
One moment. The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite.
Aye.
Thank you.
To the appropriate person, Councilmember Lewis is indicated that he is actually on the call and is requesting permission to speak.
Oh. All right, Ms. Kempson, right before we close that vote, can we go ahead and let Mr. Lewis speak to this?
Sure, one moment. We're working with logistics to identify and unmute him.
Thank you.
What number is he calling in from?
Oh, Ms. Kempson, right.
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
That might be the highlight of my week.
Oh, yep, the meeting's coming off the rails.
I have the cell phone number if you're ready.
Yes, please, Councilmember.
404-587-5438.
We're working to get him on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew, okay.
He's providing the city
Line unmuted.
404-274-6389.
Yes, Councilmember, he just texted to me. We're working to make sure he gets on so he can speak. Thank you so much. We're conferencing him in. He's on the public bridge. One moment.
Yes, can you hear me now? Councilmember Lewis, welcome to our meeting. Sorry for the delay in getting you connected, but you have the floor now to speak to your paper before we close the vote.
Thank you, Councilmember One, for running such an awesome meeting. Thank you, Councilmember Waite, for making sure that you're able to let me know I'm on a call. So I was reaching out to the purpose of us reaching out to get the laptops, get the computers, the used computers for our district, is to take them to senior citizen homes in our district and actually teach senior citizens home folks that live in
Line muted.
that live in senior citizen homes how to use Zoom, how to use different things. And also we want to give four of them to a new day spa from our community that's going to do a career workshop in the daytime for homeless and houseless individuals that we have in the Pittsburgh community. So what we saw computers that were in the city council chambers for a while that were used before and haven't been used in a while. We have to still purchase the monitors ourselves from our own budget. So what we want to do is give these computers to the 12 senior buildings in our district and that one church. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Are there any other questions from my colleagues for Mr. Lewis? All right, if not, the vote is currently open. Let's go ahead and close the vote. Ms. Kempson, right, I see a count of 7-0.
Yes,
is that correct?
You're correct. It was favorable on substitute, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Wonderful. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for bringing that to us for consideration. All right, the next item is item number 18, which is 22-01168. Colleagues, there is a substitute in your packet. I will read the caption and then make a motion to bring that forward. It's an ordinance by Councilmember Alex Wan, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee to correct ordinance 21-0740, adopted on October 4th, 2021, to correct the fund account for renovations at Fire Station 19 and for other purposes. Make a motion to bring forward the substitute. Is there a second?
Second, Winston.
Second by Winston. Motion by Juan. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
Wade says aye.
Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right. The motion carries. Colleagues, this paper corrects an allocation that my predecessor, Councilmember Ide, did last year. Unfortunately, at the time the paper passed, it had the wrong account number. This corrects that. So it's no new funding. It's simply redirecting the money to the appropriate funding stream. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve on substitute. Can I get a second on that, please?
Second, Winston.
Second by Winston, motion by Juan. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Wade. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. I'm going to take the next two items together without objection. 22-01178, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $1,500.00 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to the Little 5 Point Center for Arts and Community and for other purposes. And number 20, which is 22-01179, an ordinance by Councilmembers Matt Westmoreland and Antonio Lewis authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $5,000.00 from various accounts to the Atlanta Technical College Foundation. All right, colleagues, any questions on either of these two council contributions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve both. Is there a second?
Second, Bakhtiari.
Second by Bakhtiari, motion by Juan. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Wade. Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable.
All right, the motion carries on both items. Okay, I believe that takes us to item number 21, 22-01180, an ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to allocate funds for a new pedestal for the Martin Luther King Jr. statue located at the intersection of Northside Drive and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, Georgia State Capitol, from the 2022 infrastructure bonds for horizontal projects, council discretionary account, and for other purposes. I'm going to go ahead and read in 22-0-1181 because they're similar. An ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to allocate funds for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Piedmont Park from the 2022 infrastructure bonds for horizontal projects, council discretionary accounts, and for other purposes. Mr. Bond, would you like to speak to your two papers, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Both of these are projects that we've been working on over the last several years. We want to make sure that they're covered underneath the next bond allocation. So to do so, they need to also be listed in the bond covenants. And so both of these projects, and I probably will amend the second one on Monday to include one other small project, is just to ensure that they are properly legally listed in the bond covenant for the proposed list of projects that will be voted on in the upcoming bond referendum to make sure that they are funded. The one that is probably dearest to my heart and has received a lot of support across the region is the Vietnam War Memorial that will be in Piedmont Park. We've been working with the Sons of Vietnam Veterans, the Piedmont Parks and Service, and of course, Commissioner Dargle, who's a veteran himself, and the Parks and Recreation Department. So we were going to be needing to pursue and try to raise funding from philanthropic sources, but this will ensure that the monument will be complete.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bond. So it's my understanding from talking to Finance as well as the Atlanta Department of Transportation that in order to add projects at this point to the referendum come May, there's two paths. One is to reopen up the entire project list for the citywide projects. and then essentially insert this in, but we'd have to displace a different one of similar cost magnitude. The other method, which is what you're proposing here, is to supplant the discretionary council district funds per district. And so the item number 21 is in Council District 3, and item number 22 is in Council District 6. So I'll be honest with you, I had a conversation with Councilmember Amos. I don't know if he is on the line or not. He was intending to be on here. We are not prepared to or are not supportive of this yet, seeing as how did not realize that you were intending to do this until the papers came through. I'm very familiar with the project you're talking about at Piedmont Park, but I think this warrants some further conversation about, what my predecessor had already committed in terms of those discretionary funds to the district, as well as what Councilmember Amos had, his predecessor did as well. So Mr. Amos, are you on the phone with us at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Previously, only district members, hold on. Previously, only district members received discretionary funds, but in the last term, at-large members were granted discretionary funds, and I was told that it was up to $1.5 million. And that's why, so this shouldn't impact your district or Councilmember Amos.
Okay, well, I appreciate that perspective. I mean, I'll need
the entire city, so it should not impact. Shouldn't impact either of you.
Gotcha. So I'd like someone from either ADOT or Finance to confirm that this is on top of the council district discretionary balances that were set forth in the infrastructure bond, and that the way Mr. Bond has presented it is actually correct. Because I also don't want us to go, if it isn't the case, I adore our at-large council members. I don't want to start a precedent whereby they can essentially go and insert themselves into any council district projects that y'all have already committed to. So if there's someone from ADOT, yep, I agree. So let's get a confirmation on that. Perfect. Yeah, I just want to get a confirmation from either Finance or ADOT that your interpretation is correct.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Yes, you have the floor.
Yeah, the existing renew bond allocates discretionary fund per each of the 12 council districts. The proposed infrastructure package does exactly the same thing. There are no allocations for at-large council members.
Well, that's not what I was told last term, because I raised the issue that as all members of council are equal, that the at-large offices did not have those discretionary terms, and it was supposed to have been changed. And I was told that it was changed, and that I had up to $1.5 million, or else I wouldn't have introduced this legislation.
Sir, I'm not sure who shared that information with you in the process of putting the projects together. We never had allocations for the three post-at-large council members.
Well, it says something.
Mr. Bond, might I suggest we hold these papers to give you time to chase that down. If it's the case, then we can obviously bring it back in the next cycle. I mean, we have till May to be able to work this through, but I think it is important to get that, your interpretation, if it is correct, to get that squared away.
All right, that's fine. Motion to hold.
Okay. There's a motion from Bond to hold both papers. I will second that. Is there any further discussion on this item or these two items? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Waite? Aye. Thank you.
Seeing none, let's go ahead and open.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are held.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Bond. Next item is 22-01183, an ordinance by council members Marcy Collier Overstreet, Andrea L. Boone, Keisha Sean Waite, and Jason Dozier, authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $4,000.00 from various accounts to the Cascade Springs Nature Preserve and for other purposes. I'm sorry, there is a substitute for this. The substitute caption looks like it doesn't change. I believe it was correct, the funding stream. So let me go ahead and put forward a motion to bring forward the substitute. Is there a second?
Second, Dozier.
Second by Dozier, motion by Juan. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you. And Councilmember Juan, just for the public's knowledge, the only thing that does change in the caption, it is no longer to the Cascade Springs Nature Preserve. It's to the Cascade Heights Greenway, to the Cascade Springs Nature Conservancy to assist with the Cascade Heights Greenway plan.
Gotcha. Okay, so it clarifies the recipient. Okay. All right. Any questions from my colleagues on this paper? Seeing none, is there a motion?
A motion approved.
All right. There's a motion from Dozier to approve on substitute. Bakhtiari seconds. Let's go ahead and open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Waits is aye. Thank you. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item is 22-01183. There is also a substitute for this one. It's an ordinance by council members Marcy Collier Overstreet and Amir Faroki, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing a donation in a total amount not to exceed $3,000.00 from the Council District 11 and 2 carry forward accounts and the Council President distribution account for the maintenance of the Zernona-Clayton statute project and for other purposes. I'll move to bring that substitute forward. Can I get a second, please?
Second, Bakhtiari.
Second by Bakhtiari, motion by Juan. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Thank you. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. Colleagues, this is pretty self-explanatory. I think the ask is for us to move this forward with no recommendations in the event that other council members would like to add their names and contributions to this before Monday. I'll put forward that motion. Motion to move forward with no recommendation on substitute, and with the condition that we have the final substitute on Monday. Can I get a second on that, please?
Second.
All right, second by Bond. Ms. Kempson, right before we open the vote, I would imagine the procedure, if someone does want to, other council members want to participate, is to let you know, or is there someone else that is shepherding this paper?
Yes, if they could send an email to Councilmember Overstreet and copy me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, colleagues, you have those instructions. Any other questions on this motion and paper before we vote on it? All right. Seeing none, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye.
Shook is aye.
Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
I'm sorry, you were the second. I apologize. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will move forward with no recommendation on substitute.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. Motion carries. All right. That takes us now to resolutions. Rounding the corner here. First one is 22-R3193, a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari in support of Senate Bill 403 to enact the Georgia Behavioral Health Peace Officer Responder Act, which will establish a collaboration between law enforcement agencies and behavioral health specialists to decriminalize mental health and for other purposes. Ms. Bakhtiari, do you want to speak to this paper or make a motion?
I motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Winston.
Second by Winston. Motion by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Waits is aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Oh, you're on my
Councilmember Shook.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 22-R3195, a resolution by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the Chief Procurement Officer to execute the appropriate documents to modify services agreement number listed, annual maintenance support services for Mayor's Cabinet Room, Executive Small Conference Room, and Communications Conference Room, substitute ADI Southeast LLC for BC Group LLC doing business as ABYBE as a party to the agreement on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Communications and for other purposes. I believe that Lanice Harris is on the phone to speak to this. We can unmute her and let's hear about this paper.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance Executive Committee. I'm Lanice Harris with Channel 26. The city entered into a service agreement, the number listed, for the Mayor's Cabinet Room, the Executive Small Conference Room, and the Communication Conference Room. And it's basically to provide services and maintenance for the audiovisual systems there. The agreement included an initial term of 5 years effective through February 19th, 2025, and the amount not to exceed $16,375.00, and 1 3-year renewal options to be exercised at the sole discretion of the city.
All right, any questions for Ms. Harris on this legislation? If not, is there a motion?
Move approval.
All right, there's a motion from Bond to approve. I'll second that. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Waits is aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Shook.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, this motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next item, 22-R3197, a resolution by Councilmember Alex Wan authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayment to water and sewer accounts in an amount of blank. All funds to be charged to and paid from fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed and for other purposes. I'll move to hold. This is our shell paper that will come back off of held once the Watershed is ready to make more refunds. So the motion is to hold. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Second by Bond, motion by Wan. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Lake?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Shook?
Yeah, I'm back online and the vote.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Dozier?
Aye. My apologies.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is 22-R3198, resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond requesting the city auditor conduct a study and analysis of the funds spent by the city of Atlanta with minority and female business partner vendors, including a comparison of the amount represented in original bids with amounts actually dispersed for completed work within the city of Atlanta's Equal Business Opportunity Program over the past 4 years from 2018 to 2021 and for other purposes. Mr. Bond, do you want to speak to this, or do you want to let Mr. Bruce Bell speak first and then you'll speak after that?
I think the legislation is self-explanatory.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Bell, did you want to speak to this? I had you listed as speaking to this on the administration's behalf.
Yes, Councilman Juan. Bruce Bell, Interim Director, Mayor's Office of Contract Compliance. I was really seeking to get more information about this resolution. The Office of Contract Compliance keeps annual reports. As a matter of fact, we send them to you every year regarding a audit that may be difficult because, as you know, the city's EBO and SBO programs are based on 58% of all spending by the city of Atlanta. And so while we can give you an annual report that outlines dollars awarded to prime contractors versus dollars awarded to minority, female, and disadvantaged and small business enterprises, there may be some difficulty in trying to come up with the exact amount of money spent with these firms. And so I was just trying to get a little bit more information before I offered up for a second time these annual reports that may save some time for the auditors going through this report.
Mr. Bond, did you want to respond to that? Yep, Mr. Bond.
Sure. Well, that's the actual reason why we need the auditors to audit. I've received complaints from many MBE contractors over the years that what is represented in the bid, they don't get in the work. And so we want to know exactly what type of disparity there is between what is represented as a goal when people are bidding and how much these minority firms actually benefit from that relationship with the majority contractor. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, so that's exactly the point of the legislation. Well, I mean, we do get the annual reports and they're helpful, but we want to know that what we are holding up as a goal is whether it's being complied with or not.
So, if I may respond to that, let me remind everyone that a goal is equivalent to a target. We base the recommendations and the program on commitments. A commitment is your promise. And so because of the rules of engagement, any prime contractor bidding on a contract can proffer a percentage of participation that may be less than the actual goal, as long as they have what we call documentary evidence of good faith outreach efforts. So, for example, if there's a goal of 35% on a contract and a prime contractor proffers 30% participation, then we have to accept that 30% level by law. So you can't say that every contract has to meet the goal in its entirety because the laws don't allow us to do that. So,
Mr. Bell, this is Mr. Councilmember Juan. I mean, I don't think that's what Mr. Bond is asking for. I think there needs to be an accountability loop. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for what's on the face of the legislation. And what's on the face of the legislation is to find out exactly, what the comparison actually is.
I mean, he brings up a good point in terms of, is there an accountability loop? So I could come in, I could propose anything I want. If I realize that there's no check at the back end in terms of what my actuals were, I understand we have to build in flexibility and understand that I may have promised 10, but I only got to 9 or 8, and there's a reason why. But Mr. Bell, are you telling me that right now we don't have any sort of accountability?
No, that is we do have checks and balances, and we also monitor these contracts monthly to ensure that the contractors are meeting the commitment. So if you say you're going to give us 30% participation, we're monitoring that process to make sure you do so by the end of the contract. Now, there's always an exception to the rule where maybe the user agency de-scoped some of the project, which may cause us to come short of a goal, but we do have a process in place to ensure that we get the participation that a contractor commits to.
Mr. Bond, did you want to say it, or did any of my other colleagues have any comments or thoughts on this paper before us?
Well, I mean, I just want to lay his fears aside. We're not questioning the work of the Office of Contract Compliance, but we want to know what is the real, actual picture between the goal and what has actually transpired. You know, what is the actual result in the amount of work for these minority contractors?
Okay, well, there's no fear involved. We're really just trying to find out what exactly you had in mind with this resolution. So,
it's just as plain as it is written.
Okay,
we want the city auditors to look at it and give us a fair and objective, unbiased report on the state of affairs with the program over the last 4 years.
Fair enough. I was just trying to get clarification to see if I could help.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, do you want to put forward a motion?
Move approval.
All right. Is there a second?
Second, Bakhtiari.
All right. Motion by Bond, second by Bakhtiari. Any further discussion? If not, let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Waite? Aye. Thank you. Councilmember Winston?
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 78, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right. Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you, Mr. Bond. All right. That takes us to item number 29, 22-R3200. Colleagues, there is a substitute for this. I will read that. Yeah, I will read that in and then make the motion to bring it forward. It's a substitute resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute amendment number 5 for contract number listed cooperative agreement for HVAC services with Train US Inc. to add the Atlanta Police Department, the Department of Aviation, and the Department of Corrections as authorized users to exercise the first renewal of the agreement on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, Atlanta Department of Transportation, and the Department of Watershed Management effective April 26, 2022 through March 31, 2023 in an amount not to exceed $1,265,000.00 and to correct and retitle resolution number 20-R4682 as amendment number 4. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I'll move to bring forward the substitute. Can I get a second on that, please? Wow, y'all were jumping all over each other before. Now I can't get one. Who's second? Okay. That's TRE second. Motion one. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Waite? Aye. Thank you. Councilmember Bond?
Aye.
The vote is closed. 78, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right, we have the substitute before us. I believe Mr. St. Peel or Mr. Davis will be speaking to this. Are they on the line and unmuted?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Is this Mr. St. Peel?
No, this is Mr. Davis. How you doing today?
Mr. Davis. Good. You have the floor. Please proceed.
Yeah, so this is amendment just as it reads, and this is to add additional departments onto the existing contract with Train, and it's to add 3 departments to be included with the on the Train contract.
All right. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. I have a question on this one. So this is amendment number 5 that adds $1.1 million. The original contract back when it was done, I believe in 18, was for $215,000. And over time, we've managed to add $1.5 million even before we add the $1.1 million here. So my question here is that if someone from the department or from procurement can help me understand at what point should we really be rebundling this and reletting it? Because a contract initially for $215,000 versus one that's for 2.7, very, very different. So I need someone to kind of walk me through that, if you can. And I totally understand the notion of, departments getting added on, but maybe part of the explanation is why there isn't more of a comprehensive assessment across all departments for every, some of these contracts that we know we're going to have, like HVAC. So if I don't know who from the department can respond to that, but that's my question on this one. If you can. I fully understand the notion of, departments getting us on, but, the explanation.
Can you hear me, Council? Good afternoon.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Chair Wan,
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You have the floor.
Fantastic. This is Martin Clark, Chief Procurement Officer. Councilman Wan, that's a great question. This contract actually was initiated by Dean, and it was actually a co-op agreement. This is a cooperative agreement which allowed for us to get potentially the lowest prices in, and it's similar to, of course, GSA contract, where it's the lowest prices in the public sector. It's not always like that. In this case, it was. Because of the competitive pricing that was afforded by this cooperative agreement, other departments within the city wanted to take advantage of it. Now, I can tell you that from the Department of Procurement's policy, we generally like to have competitive procurement, as a lot of these alternate style procurement, such as cooperatives and special procurements and sole sources, do not allow us to include participation goals. But with this particular contract, the train contracts allow for very, very competitive, just about essentially the lowest prices for the goods and services, and hence why it was attractive for the other departments. On our co-ops, Chair Wan, all of our co-ops, we still require public sector pricing comparisons, and so we do recommend moving forward with this one, sir.
How frequently is that assessment done, though? So, I mean, this was initially done in 2019, and here we are. I mean, is that done on an annual basis? And who is it done by? Who makes the assessment that, yes, this is a competitive price and we should continue using this versus bundling this and going after a full RFP?
Sure. That'll be initiated initially by the user agency, and then our staff will, of course, also do market baskets to do a comparison. The basic function of procurement is to respond to the needs for goods and services by the user agency, so they will initiate it. And if, for instance, this on the next round does not appear to be the lowest price, then we could always, of course, initiate a RFP for the servicer.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but there's a little bit of a disconnect though when other departments are now jumping on that. So clearly, I'm assuming procurement is the clearinghouse when those departments come and say, "Hey, I need HVAC." Someone has to tell them that we've got this cooperative purchasing agreement that they can then tag onto. So, I just want to caution us about this because, there again a big difference when we go out and procure a $200,000 contract and then 4 years later, it's become a $2.7 million contract. So I'm going to pause there. I see Mr. Shook has his hand raised, so I'll relinquish the floor to him. Mr. Shook.
Yeah, thank you. So, cynics would say, perhaps, that the game here is for a company to get its toe in the door, low bid, and then engorge itself on these kinds of amendments. Mr. Wan knows, as I know, and then the veterans know, there are far more egregious examples of this out there. So, but, that's just a comment. Here's my question. Is there a bright line departmental policy as to how much is too much?
If I can add to the conversation, this is not the only HVAC contractor that we have that the city uses throughout the departments. This is just one of a couple that we actually have. The value grows based upon the needs and the demands. Not all vendors are able to meet all of the requirements based upon the existing equipment that we have. Some vendors have the capability, some vendors don't, which is one of the reasons why we go out and get more than just one vendor to perform these types of activities. And because of that entity is one of the reasons why one vendor may continue to grow. But the other contractors that we have, their contractors are actually are very similar, if not more, in dollar value just for that particular need. So there is a need here to meet the demands based upon the HVAC equipment that we have. Some of this equipment is outdated, which requires a little bit more maintenance. Some of this equipment we're actually changing out to bring in some of the newer equipment that's a little bit more smarter and energy efficient. But the capacity is what's driving some of the costs here to be able to go up.
Okay. Well, and I do not mean to disparage this or any other contractor, nor can I say that I'm sure that this is not the cheaper way to go, because I don't know, and that's the problem. I don't know. Is there anyone on this call from the administration who will dispute my contention that this is the most convenient way forward?
Chairman Shook, Councilman Shook, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the terms of this consortium agreement ensures that Train's offer includes the most competitive pricing available to a public sector entity. Dean exercised additional diligence by requesting a quote for services. And on this particular one, funding was placed on the contract by other departments as a contingency to be responsive to any HVAC and chiller issues to be addressed when needed. And the co-op supports public entities nationally, so it is a very competitive price. I mean, I'll defer to the user agency as to their policy on the equipment that I cannot address, but I can certainly address the fact that the contract was evaluated and that particular agreement established public sector pricing nationally, so that it was super competitive, sir.
All right. Well, I'm going to support this. This is work that needs to be done. I don't quibble with that. I don't quibble with who's going to do what. But I will say this is a continuing source of concern for me, and I look forward to seeing what role I or we can play kind of get people feeling better about this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, other questions or comments from my colleagues on this paper? Okay. Is there a motion from anybody?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Shoko has made a motion to approve on on substitute. I will second that. I'm going to be supportive of this, but I just want, I'm firing the first shot across the bow in terms of just keeping an eye on these, what I call Christmas trees that end up having so many ornaments on it, the tree starts bending back down to the ground. So, let's just keep the conversation going about, as Mr. Shook said, are there bright lines in procurement? When you cross that, then we can no longer use a cooperative purchasing agreement or amendments, subsequent amendments to the original contract. So, any further discussion on this paper from my colleagues? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the vote, Ms. Kenson-Wright.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Waite. Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
All right, the next paper is 22-R3201, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to add funding to a joint task order fund in an amount not to exceed $500,000.00 annually for use under two managing general contractors under agreement number listed, managing general services contract numbers listed. The first one, RFBC 12-10031, A, Kissburg Parker Fry, a joint venture, and two, RFPC 12-10031B, Mighty Soko, a joint venture to provide managing general contractor services for the Department of Parks and Recreation on a task order basis for projects at various parks and recreation locations. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the additional account listed herein, and for other purposes. I believe Mr. Doug Voss is from the department to speak to this. Mr. Voss, are you on the line and unmuted?
Voss, the department. Hi, Councilmember Juan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Mr. Voss, please, you have the floor.
Thanks. Thanks for reading that. I think as stated, this resolution authorizes additional funding strings to a contract that is used by Department of Parks and Recreation called the Managing General Contractor Agreement. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, colleagues, any questions from y'all on this paper? All right, seeing none, I'll put forward a motion to approve. Can I get a second, please?
Second, Bakhtiari.
All right, motion from Juan, second from Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite. Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Voss. All right, the next paper actually looks like it's 22-R3202, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement in response to special procurement number listed pursuant to Section 2-1191.1 of the City of Atlanta Code Ordinances with designer Gary Lee Super Design Associates in an amount not to exceed $3.5 million for the purpose of designing, fabricating, transporting, and installing a permanent exhibition on the history of the Atlanta Airport in the Transportation Mall between concourses D and E at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Colleagues, I understand that we are still waiting on the iPro documentation and have not received that. So without it, we're going to have to hold this paper until the next cycle. Ms. Kempson-Wright, I just want to confirm that before we take the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, we will hold for the iPro.
Okay. All right. I'll move to hold. Oh, wait. I see someone who wants to speak. Mr. Shook. Is that
No, yeah.
Do you want to speak to this? Yep.
Thank you. No, I'm going to support the motion to hold. I just want to put it out here now that when we do get into this, someone needs to explain why we need to spend $3.5 million to explain to people who are in the airport, why the airport exists. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shook. I have a motion to hold. Was that a second on the motion, Mr. Shook? Or somebody? Anybody?
Second, Dozier.
Second, Dozier. So motion one, second, Dozier. Motion to hold. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite. Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to the dual referred items, 22-01176. This was held in CDHS. Ms. Kempson, do I need to sound this if we're not doing anything with this, or?
No, Mr. Chair, you don't need to sound either of the items. Okay. They're both held.
Great. All right, and then 22-R3199 was held in transportation. So until those committees take any action, we will wait to see what happens with that. All right, that takes us to section L, papers held in committee, and we do have a number that are coming off. The first one is 22-0-1091. There is a substitute for this in your packet. If I can find it quickly, I'll read it. There we go. I'll read it in the caption and then make the motion to bring forward the substitute. If the substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer on behalf of the Department of Transportation to transfer and deposit funds generated from fees associated with abandonments, encroachments, and right-of-way dining to the Encroachment and Abandonment Fund project and for other purposes. So I'll put forward a motion to bring forward the substitute. Can I get a second on this, please?
Second, Winston.
Second, I heard Winston, sorry. So motion by Juan, second by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Bunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Waite. Aye. Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right, we have the paper. The motion carries. We have the paper before us. I believe Ms. Katina Alexander from the department will be speaking to this. Ms. Alexander, are you on the line and unmuted?
Katina Alexander, Atlanta Department of Transportation.
Ms. Alexander, yes, please tell us about the paper.
The purpose of this paper is to transfer funds from the general fund to a fund that's dedicated for the encroachment, abandonment, and right-of-way dining fees so that those funds can be used for capital projects and other repairs within the city of Atlanta's right-of-way.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. So can you explain to me a little bit more about the limits on what the funds can be spent on, or are there no limits? You said something about a right-of-way.
There are no limits for anything in the in the Department of Transportation.
Wow.
But it puts it into a capital fund, so the money doesn't go back into the general fund. It actually goes into a capital fund dedicated for DOT's use.
Okay. This is a new fund. I'm not familiar with this, so I'm a little curious. All right, do we have any speakers or questions on this paper? All right, and Finance, I understand they had some questions on this two cycles ago. I want to confirm that their questions have been resolved satisfactorily. Is there someone from Finance who can confirm that?
This is CFO. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Mr. Bala. CFO Bala, yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I haven't had the update that I was looking for. One thing that I'm sensitive to is general fund dollars that are coming into the support the entire government, get appropriated annually through an annual appropriation, front-ending the line and kind of allocating funds on the front end as they come into the anticipation, to our anticipations. I just want to have some more discussion with the department regarding the need for this. There's many departments that can make a case for fees that are being charged that come in as general fund dollars that are then allocated annually through our appropriations process. And this seems to be an expense that can be used by the department in a more discretionary way. So I'd like to have a conversation in more detail about this.
Is there any readiness from your end on us taking action on this? Do you need us to continue to hold this, or do you want us to move forward with the condition that the conversation happen before Monday, before our full council meeting?
I'd recommend that we hold this.
Okay. All right. Ms. Alexander, any urgency given Mr. CFO Ball's comments, or can we hold this? Are you comfortable with us holding this for one more cycle?
Yes, I'm comfortable holding it for one more cycle. That's fine.
All right. Thank you. With that, colleagues, we have the substitute before us, but we probably, I don't know the procedure on his. Do we need to rehold this? We probably do, right, Ms. Santana, right? Ms. Santana, right?
We don't have to rehold. It can remain held, and the substitute information will be updated, and it will just continue to remain held.
Okay. All right. That's easy enough. All right. So we don't take action on that. It remains held. All right. The next three items I'm going to take together: 21-R3187, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into the appropriate contractual agreement with number listed Kittsburg Parker Fry JV under contract number listed under $250,000 for ADA and other improvements on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation and for other purposes. 22-R-3188, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into the appropriate contractual agreement with contract number listed, Lighty Commercial Construction, Inc., under contract number listed under $250,000 for ADA and other improvements on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation and for other purposes. And then a resolution, 22-R-3189, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into the appropriate contractual agreement with contract number listed, SoCo Contracting Company, Inc., under contract number listed under $250K for ADA and other improvements on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation and for other purposes. Colleagues, we need to amend these three papers to attach the iPro documentation, which you received in your packet. And we'll go ahead and make that motion to amend. Can I get a second on that, please?
Yes.
Second.
All right, there's a second from Shook, motion from Juan. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open.
Wait,
Councilmember Bond. Thank you. Councilmember Bond.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment for all the items is before you.
All right, the amended papers are before us. I understand Mr. Micah Smith from the department wanted to no, sorry, that's the wrong one. Is this Mr. Voss again on these papers?
Chairman Wan, this is Doug Voss with the Department of Parks and Recreation. I can speak to them.
Yes, please. Please, you have the floor.
Sure. And actually, I don't know if you want to take the fourth item too. What these resolutions do is they enter into contractual agreements with three responsive and responsible bidders, and it creates a joint task order fund, which is the item number 39, for use under those contracts. These are repair and construction service contracts. We use them for ADA and other improvements on the behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation. As you mentioned, the first one is with Kittsburg Parker Fry, the second is with Lichty Commercial Construction, and the third is with SoCo. We have used a similar contract in the past very successfully, and we are interested in trying to enter this contract again, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Voss. Any questions? And colleagues, I'm going to take that fourth paper separately simply because the motion is somewhat different on that one. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. If not, I'll put forward a motion to approve items 36, 37, and 38 as amended. Is there a second?
Second by Winston.
Second by Winston. Motion by Juan. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Waits is aye. Councilmember Byrne.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable as amended.
Okay, that motion carries on those three items. The next paper is 22-R3190, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to establish a joint task order fund for use under 3 miscellaneous repairs and construction services contracts under contract number listed under $250,000 for ADA and other improvements as contract numbers 1, contract number listed Kissburg Parker Fry JV, 2, contract number listed Lichty, sorry, I was mispronouncing that, Commercial Construction Inc., and 3, contract number listed SoCo Contracting Company Inc. to provide for ADA and other improvements on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation on a task order basis in an amount not to exceed $5,925,000.00. All services will be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. You've heard Mr. Voss's remarks on this. Are there any questions on this paper? Seeing none, I'll move approval. Can I get a second, please?
Second, Bakhtiari.
Second, Bakhtiari. Motion 1. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Councilmember Byrne.
Aye.
Councilmember White. Aye. Thank you. Councilmember Winston.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, so that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Voss. Thank you, colleagues. Ms. Kempsler, I want to confirm that we are done with the legislative actions we need to take for committee today.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, colleagues, I have an announcement just to actually for everybody. As we know, we will be returning to full in-person committee or full council meeting on March 7th. That means that our subsequent committee meetings will be in person as well. So this will be our last remote meeting as far as we know at this point. All committee meetings, so our next one will be March 16th, will be held in council chambers, and masks are going to be required for attending the meeting. Public comment, also per the memo that we saw, will be in person. So those that are listening and would like to continue participating in the meeting, be sure that you come down here and follow the procedures for in-person public comment. Ms. Kempsler, is there any other, colleagues first, any other comments? I see somebody. Mr. Shook.
Yeah, thank you. I thought the mask mandates had been lifted. Are you saying that council members need to be masked during the entirety of our Monday meeting, despite the presence of the plexiglass dividers?
Mr. Shook, this is, again, following the memo that President Shipment sent out earlier this week. We can definitely confirm with him and Ms. Kempson Wright in advance of this meeting on the 16th. But yes, we are going to be masked at the full council meeting on Monday. I just received a note that the plexiglass is being removed from council chambers as well.
Thank God, thank God, thank God.
Was that Mr. Vaughn?
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, and no, I agree with that. That's fine, Mr. Warren. You sit next to me, so.
I'll bring I'll bring extra spray and wipes.
Yeah, you might want to wear it too. We'll see how that goes. Thank you.
All right. Other questions or comments from my colleagues for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, Ms. Kempton-Wright, I just want to confirm that we have no other business we need to attend to for committee today.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, well, very good. Thank you, colleagues, for a great, efficient meeting, and we will see everybody on Monday at the full council meeting. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Good meeting.
This meeting is now adjourned.
Everybody.